I've been asked a good question if the 15V will hold up to significant wood carving, so I figured we would do a comparison test between two different steels, and these couldn't be further from each other. One thing these two steels do have in common is the factory edges are about the same at 17 degrees per side. This is what the edge looks like cutting A4 printer paper before we start testing. We're going to be testing the edge by doing some abusive cutting on some African blackwood. You'll notice that some of these cuts are appropriate and some are not, such as shock loading the edge and doing some scraping is something you should never do with high quality cutlery, no matter what the steel is. This will put excess abusive wear on your edge. Upon closer observation, we don't observe any gross edge damage. However, we're able to make straight cuts inside of the A4 printer paper with ease. Now moving on to this knife. The factory edge on this knife was not as sharp as the Spyderco knife and had some burr. Moving over to the African blackwood, we tried to do a similar abusive cut test on the African blackwood with this knife. Now of course this test is not highly measured or controlled with the number of cuts and scrapes being done. However, we should be able to observe a difference anecdotally between these two very dissimilar things. While we don't observe any significant blunting at this angle, when cutting the A4 printer paper, we do observe there was significant blunting that took place when abusing the edge on the extremely hard African blackwood. So the softer steel with lower carbide volume technically had lower edge stability. This might subvert some expectations about the harder CPM 15V, which has significantly more carbide volume having more edge stability. Now, while it's not something we're trying to focus on in this video, I did have to mention that the one-hand operation of this knife in particular wasn't very good. It seemed like it preferred two hands to close rather than using one hand. Now, when I took the knife apart, it did appear there was a large burr in the action. Now, by comparison, the Spyderco Para 3 Lightweight has a significant upgrade in the one-hand operation, smoothness of action, and it's just a lot of fun. While the handle material is of a similar type to the cheaper knife that we compared to, don't let that fool you. The action of this knife is incredible. There was a 10-point difference in hardness between these two materials, and we could see if we look closely at the edge, there was significant rolling that took place with abusive cutting versus almost no observable damage with the CPM 15V. So, I would argue that the CPM 15V, by comparison, is definitely up to the task.